With 3 #1 albums under his belt and counting, Metro Boomin is arguably the top producer in the entire game. Every time you hear one of his iconic producer tags, it basically became a stamp of quality. However, what's made his success in recent years even more incredible is that he's achieved it during the lowest moment of his entire life. Because even though his professional accomplishments are important to him, he'd give it all up just to have one person back in his life. My name is Louaista, and today we're looking at how Metro Boomin turned tragedy into triumphs. Over the course of an iconic run at the top of the pecking order of producers, Metro has become one of the biggest names to ever sit behind the boards. Over the years, he's worked with so many megastars that he even has a hard time giving you the full list of who's graced one of his trademark beats.
Name some of the artists you work with for those that don't know.
Future, of course. Thug, 21 Savage, Travis Scott, Drake, Kanye.
What's crazy is that barely even skims the surface of the legends he's tapped in with. Possessing more platinum plaques at 29 years old than most people obtain over a 3-decade career, Metro is truly one of the best to ever load up Fruity Loops and try to make a beat. But this whole journey might have looked very different if it weren't for his mom, Leslie Wayne. And unfortunately for Metro, she would become his greatest influence and motivator both in life and death. When Metro talks about his origins as a producer, the story goes that it all started when he was in middle school.
I love music my whole life, so growing up, I always wanted to be a rapper at first. In order to do that, I needed some beats, so I started to make my own beats. And at that time, I was 13, even seeing the success of Soulja Boy and making his own beats, it was like, it's possible. 10th grade, I started to get some traction with people online and out of town, started making trips to Atlanta.
Considering he was only 15 years of age at the time, getting there from St. Louis would have been impossible without someone in his corner. It was his mom who was his chaperone on early trips to the A before the whole family would eventually move down there.
I remember when I was in prison, I was reading the Fader magazine, I was reading about how Metro mom used to take him all the way to Atlanta.
Right.
The article came out 2016, I'm in the penitentiary, I'm reading that shit, and you just was like, man, I'm out here, I'm grinding, man, we getting down here, we going to fuck to the A to make it happen, and now you done made beats for everybody.
But while that was a selfless move from his mom, this wasn't the only way that she influenced his career. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Metro being so determined to get her on his team, he might never have tried his hand at making beats in the first place.
Being a rapper back then, or saying you want to be a rapper back then, is not the same as today.
No.
Back then you say that, your mama, your grandmama, aunties, what is you talking about? Go to school, you tripping, type shit. So I had kind of finessed it to ease it in, and I would always just tell them I want to be a music producer. It just sounded like some business.
Knowing that his mom wanted to make good on his potential, Leslie later revealed in an interview with The Fader that a young Metro really put the work in to convince her that the dream was feasible. I came home from work and he was waiting for me, ready for a business meeting, she said in 2015. He had a green folder with information on all the people he wanted to work with. He printed it out from the internet and he left me with the folder overnight so I could go through it. He was so prepared. Now that she was convinced to make the grueling 17-hour round trips with him every weekend, Leslie became a part of the hip-hop scene too. And once he signed up to Morehouse College to study business, she and the whole fam moved down. We wasn't smoking in the studio back then because his mom was coming in, said OJ the Juice Man of those early sessions. Although his mom initially tried to keep him in college, the success of his work on tracks like Future's Karate Chop and seeing the impact his tracks had on the city meant that soon he was making beats full-time. Even though she didn't necessarily agree, she still supported him, and according to Metro, it was Leslie who always told him not to sell his masters and keep as much ownership of his music as he could.
When I was young, and I always said I want to be in music, before I even knew what masters was or your masters was, my mama growing up, she always be like, never sell your masters. She always said it forever. Never even knew what that shit was back then.
Despite Leslie's concerns, Metro's gamble clearly paid off. From his work on classics like Savage Mode and Without Warning, to his own star-studded debut project, Not All Heroes Wear Capes, Metro went from a talented outsider to the most sought-after producer in hip-hop. He even launched his own label, Boomin Worldwide, in 2018. Interestingly, it was around this time that Metro decided to sit back for a couple of years. Because after having such a high degree of success, the last thing he wanted to do was let his sound get played out.
A strategic fall back, but the world don't know your plan. So a fall back will look like a fall off. You know what I'm saying?
You knew what you was doing.
But of course I knew what I was doing.
Make yourself exclusive. Right.
And what always happened, like I said, I'm a student in the game, bro. I study this shit to a T, dot to I, study this shit. So it's always, there'll be a hot producer, and of course you get on, and all these people are calling you, all the biggest, everybody's calling you. of course you're gonna pick up for everybody. Of course you're gonna try to do everything, but it's like they just use you up, burn everything out, and just like, all right, what's next? You know, and I didn't want that to happen.
Although he went as far as to call himself retired for a little while, Metro eventually came back in 2020 with the commercial and critical success of Savage Mode 2 before teasing his own solo return throughout 2021. But while he was preparing to return to the game with a new album, his life would be shattered by a senseless crime.
TMZ is reporting the mother of a St. Louis producer and rapper is dead after an apparent murder-suicide in Atlanta. Leland Wayne, known as Metro Boomin, thanked his mother for his entry into the music business, about her loss to the community and the young entertainer.
Her life was taken Friday in Atlanta, according to TMZ, at the hands of her husband, who took his own life thereafter.
In June of 2022, Metro lost his biggest inspiration when Leslie was killed by his stepfather before he later turned the weapon on himself. As soon as the news broke, the rap community paid tribute to his mom and let Metro know that they were all praying for him. In addition to his fellow artists expressing their concern, his fans did too, saying things like, "Man, I hope he's doing okay, especially the way she passed away." Suddenly left without one person who believed in him like no other, Metro went quiet until July when he finally spoke out with a simple message to his followers. "Please love and appreciate your parents while they are here," he wrote on IG. "I'd give anything in the world to speak to my mom again. Crying every day is the new normal." In August of 2022, he would pour his heart out to the world once again. "My mom was and still is my best friend in the universe, and anybody who really knows me knows I've always been a mama's boy my whole life. This gotta be what hell feel like, cause it's like my soul just burning and everything around me constantly burning." Even though his heart was breaking, Metro knew that Leslie Wayne didn't raise a quitter. She raised a fighter. She raised a fighter who would bring his dreams to life no matter what he was feeling. With the help of some real friends, Metro began building what would become a landmark moment in his career with 2022's Heroes and Villains, a record which would go on to outstream records including Drake and 21 Savage's Her Loss. In every way, it was an album that was born out of the most difficult period of his life, and with the help of his aunt, he realized that he had to use the anguish he felt as fuel for the art. She was like, "Everything you're feeling right now, you could channel that." That's when a lot of the most impactful art and music has ever been made. As beautiful as that was from his family member, the fact that he almost lost it because of Gunna's clumsiness didn't really help.
Me and Gunna in the studio. And I had my laptop, it was my Windows one right here. And I had like this shirt jacket type thing on, but he had a cup by the laptop. And I got up to like turn around and do something, and it knocked the whole cup over my whole keyboard, computer, everything. I turn around and it's just drank all over the fucking keyboard, my whole computer.
Damn.
And this is why I'm working on Heroes though. While I'm working on it, a lot of shit is on there, so like, where I felt like I was dying right then.
After all of the agony and moments of indecision he felt on the road to releasing the project, it definitely paid off. Seen as one of the best albums of the year and a record that helped bring the trap sound out of its funk, Metro was at the top of the game once again. But still, he carried the pain with him even as he obtained the greatest successes of his career. And even as everyone praised the record, the only approval he really wanted was his mom's. Instead of being able to talk to her, he shared some of the encouraging texts she'd sent before she tragically passed on. "Take your time, son. Give your best to your own. Show them you are still number one and that no shade can hide your shine. Let them shake hands with the reality of number two." Boom. Although he rightfully claimed his spot back at the top just as his mom predicted, Metro never let her leave his mind or even his neck thanks to a new chain. Rather than let the sadness overtake him, Metro continued to throw himself into his work and executively produced an album of music for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse that peaked at number 5 on the Billboard charts. But as his success continued to grow, he wanted to pay homage to the person that got him there. And as a result, he launched what is now known as Single Moms Are Superheroes, an annual celebration in his hometown of St. Louis, which pays tributes to parents just like Leslie. But that wasn't all, as this act of kindness led to the creation of Metro Boomin Day in his hometown. Celebrated for his prestigious accomplishments and contributions to the music industry, this was understandably an emotional time for Metro. And once again, he traced it all back to Leslie's shining example. "I'm really her junior. I feel like when people see me, they see her, whether they realize it or not." In addition to the principles she gave him to live with, the choice to take his mom's advice and abstain from letting anyone else own his masters would pay off in 2023, when he sold a portion of his publishing catalog to Shamrock Holdings for $70 million. Now leading the charge for hip-hop production once again, Metro is in a position where he can keep doing what made his mom and his loved ones so proud. And by the looks of it, that's exactly what he's focused on going forward.
What do I want Metro Boomin's legacy to be? I want it to be just known in the undisputed fact that I put 1,000% of my effort in every time. No matter the result, you know, and you could hear and tell, like, yo, there's effort and thought into this. I want anything, I want my legacy to be somebody who inspired a lot of others. You're young, you're watching this, or even if you're not young, you're watching this, I'll say, stay down, run your own race. Keep your morals intact, just stay down and be patient. I promise that it's the patience.